Go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers. Go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers.
Tiger Talk.
Go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers.
Tuff Tiger Talk.
Go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers.
Tuff Tiger Talk.
Go Tigers, go Tigers.
You're now listening to Tuff Tiger Talk with Big Q and the guys on the Pro Media Network.
What's going on, Tuff Tiger Talk Nation? What's good? Big Q in the building. Kicking it with you guys for another installment of Tuff Tiger Talk. We in the building. This one's called TJ Finley enters the NCAA transfer portal and more Tiger Talk topics. Big ups to the family members, the purple and gold family. A lot going on in LSU Nation. I'd like to bring in my co-host and key contributor, going to be on this Tuff Tiger Talk for the new season coming in, my dog, GM Kev. Kev, welcome to the fam.
Thank you, Q. I'm glad to be here, bro.
And Kev, this is going to be a real good show, man. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff going on with LSU. We thought, man, just going off and jumping right on into it, the biggest staple point of any team is usually the quarterback position. We're having a little bit of turmoil happening here for LSU. TJ Finley, a lot of people are like, okay, TJ is a good quarterback, but they really feeling Max Johnson, man, the way he performed at the back end of the season. He electrified the offense for LSU. And really, man, you've seen stagnant points where TJ looked good and then sometimes he didn't, and we understood he was really fresh in that thing. Both of those guys were, but just Max just took over, man. We're going to talk about Finley's entering that NCAA transfer portal, and also maybe some other quarterback from LSU's possibly going into that portal as well. We're going to cover both them topics today. We're also going to talk about the ESPN release its post-spring top 25 ranking. Where does the Tigers fall in that ranking? Well, we'll get into that as well. We'll talk about LSU's new pass rusher, 6'6" Punisher, as he called Mr. Landon Jackson. We'll talk about him. We'll also talk about LSU's football secondary helping itself out most during which member of that secondary helped itself out during the spring camp. We'll get into that as well. And, of course, we'll kind of look at the depth chart heading into this thing, and we'll kind of look at what's going on with LSU. And, of course, we have some Coach O we're going to play in just a second about Coach O's thoughts on some of the LSU players taken in the NFL 2021 draft. We'll hear that on Coach O. So without further ado, we're going to start off the show. We'll start off with the quarterback talk. We'll get to Coach O momentarily. And Kev, LSU Tigers quarterback TJ Finley entering the NCAA transfer portal. And this is coming by way of ESPN. LSU quarterback TJ Finley, who started 5 games for the Tigers as a freshman in 2020, has officially entered the portal. He said, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for all the love and support shown towards me this past year and have. Finley said in the Twitter post Thursday, being a part of LSU's football team has been a dream come true and is one that I will cherish for the rest of my life. Although my time has come to an end as an LSU football player, I wish my former teammates and coaching staff a successful upcoming season. Change is never easy, but it's needed for growth. And that's what he told them. Now, Finley and 3 other quarterbacks competed during the spring practice at LSU, but Miles Brennan and Max Johnson emerged as likely leaders for the race to start. TJ Finley, who's 6'6", 240 plus pounds, a native of Ponchatoula, who's a 4-star recruit, seen the writing on the wall pretty early and said, you know what, maybe I need to go and find myself a place because look like I'm going to be behind on the race. Let's talk about this, Kev.
Yeah, and even the commentators at the spring game said that same comment. So I think the word was already circulating through the building that it's possible he might go ahead and walk. I mean, I'm sad because it's an in-state recruit, a lot of hype. He's a kid with a lot of potential, big arm. And I think he was still having a lot to learn and scratch the surface. And, you hate to lose him. I don't know what's going on. But, I think Max is the guy. To me, he's the guy. He has the juice. The team likes him. They respond to him. I mean, he has that energy bug. And but I hate to see this happen, man. But we see this a lot lately.
Yeah, it really is turning into something, man. But like I said, this wasn't a fault. This wasn't a really big surprise right here, based on how Max Johnson played toward the back end of last season. He had more of a firm command of the team, in my opinion, even
Yeah.
more so than Miles Brennan, who just underwhelmed in so many levels for me. He was such
Yeah.
an underwhelming quarterback, man. But
Yeah.
TJ Finley, man, uh, hey man, big quarterback with a lot of talent. He's going to head somewhere else. Where he's going, that's not really decided on exactly where TJ Finley is going to be heading. But outside of that, he's a pretty good quarterback, and I hopefully
Yeah.
he doesn't land anywhere close where we have to see him anytime soon. All
Yeah.
right. So let's move on. Let's get to our next topic here, Kevin. We're going to talk about the next one here, moving on, which is this one from the fan-sided article from Death Valley Voice talking about LSU football mentions that Miles Brennan could still end up transferring. And this is from Zach Reagan. It was released about an hour ago. LSU football news dropped this week with various reports indicated that Finley submitted his name to the portal. Finley, who started 5 games in 2020, was likely the third quarterback on the depth chart. The assumption throughout spring has been that LSU quarterback will transfer. The fact that it's Finley isn't a surprise, considering he probably wasn't going to see much playing time this year. But just because Finley's transferring doesn't mean the quarterback movement on the roster is done. Could LSU football also lose Miles Brennan is another thing. A lot of people say, well, Q, let him get the hell out of here too, because he's sorry too. He doesn't have much presence. He's not much of a leader. He's milquetoast. He's stoic. Let's have a guy with some energy, some effort, some strength, some vigor. And that is most certainly not Miles Brennan. It's Miles Boring, if you ask me. But the Tigers will still have 3 quarterbacks capable of starting. It's Max Johnson, who a lot of people's feeling, who finished the
Yeah.
2020 season as the starter. Freshman Garrett Nussmeier, who's the future. But Nussmeier has only been on campus since the beginning of the year. Johnson could actually be the favorite to start in 2021. If Brennan doesn't win the job this summer, he will be content. Would he be content redshirting his senior season as a backup? Now, according to 24/7 Sports Shay Dixon, it's very possible that Brennan leaves Baton Rouge if he doesn't feel like he's going to be the starter this fall. Ogeron, by the way, doesn't plan to name a starter until this fall. From talking with sources over the past 24 hours, the Tigers are still going to have to buckle in to make sure they're not left with just 2 scholarship quarterbacks. So Brennan has already graduated, so he'll be eligible to play immediately if he decides to transfer. If he feels like this could be either way, Brennan, Coach O isn't giving a name of who the starter is going to be, which is good. Let him win it out, like we
Right.
talked about before. But Miles Brennan leaving, a lot of the LSU family members saying he can get the hell out of here too because he's sorry too. What's your thoughts on Miles Brennan? He's stoic at best with me.
Yeah.
Got a lot of intangibles. Can throw that ball and all that, but man, no leadership, no command, no, just a boring, bland ass quarterback back there. What are your thoughts on him, GM Kev?
Yeah. When you think about, compared to Burrow, and, it's a major, major change, especially with personality. So I agree with you, man. I think that he could be transferring because, Coach O said, look, you got to win it. I'm not going to give it to you. And he's going to be a senior this year. So I don't see him being a second man now. I mean, I could definitely see him transferring, Q. I don't see a reason why he would stay, because the talk now is about Max and Nussmeier. And that's crazy because this guy's a senior. He's been there the whole time. And they're referring to the younger guys. So I'm not surprised to see this come up at all.
Yeah, he underwhelmed with me last year, and I mean, really, he did. I mean, you had all that talent there, Terrace Marshall, you had Eric Gilbert there, and
Yeah.
my goodness, he just don't have it. He doesn't have the it factor that you seen with Joey B and quarterbacks before, who he might be more talented than, but he just doesn't have the personality that you're looking for to command the huddle. Well, LSU, and many times he just disappeared, just evaporated in games. And I'm like, this guy's this guy's a backup quarterback. He has no presence at all. I mean, and if he transferred, which that's true. If he goes and there are 2 scholarship quarterbacks there, so of course Coach O's gonna have to work some magic to try to sway him in the stand. You got probably put a little Sean Payton like he did with Taysom Hill. Probably lied to him a little, huh?
Find a walk on or something somewhere just to fill that spot, but hoping those 2 guys in front of him was to stay healthy. But and I think Q, if that ends up happening, LSU still going to be in a good shape because I mean all signs are leading toward Max anyway. So we want to see this guy play. He comes from the genes of his father, the old school way. Like, no, you go out and compete and win the job. Don't just let them hand it to you. Go out there and show why you that guy. Because he could have transferred too, Q.
He could have.
He could have left, but he chose to stay and compete. And I know where that's coming from. It's coming from someone who's has that competitive spirit, and that's his father. So I think that's a main reason why Max stayed.
Future, I mean, they know that they like Nussmeier a lot, but it's not Nussmeier's time. And Max Johnson, he definitely, in my opinion, really shined, man. And like I said, he has an ick factor. He scrambles. He has a big arm. He's athletic. He has that personality, and he has an electric energy about him that we love to have at the quarterback for our Tigers. Let's move into the next one right here. ESPN's posts its post spring 25, and you'd be happy to know if you have any confidence in in ESPN that the Tigers are listed. As we look it up, we go into the article. With spring football wrapped up across the country, publications will revamp their way too early top 25 rankings that came out in droves when the 2020 season ended in January. ESPN recently rolled out its updated poll and kept LSU at number 20. There was a four-way battle for the starting quarterback job this spring. Brennan and Johnson will keep competing in preseason camp, wrote senior writer Mark Schleiback. Brennan opened 2020 as a starter but missed the final 7 games with a torn abdominal muscle. Johnson played well as a freshman last season. And Jake Peets, might favor his mobility. The Tigers brought back their entire starting offensive line, which is a plus. Although Anthony Bradford was pushing a right guard, Chase Hines, during the spring, it needs to perform better than it did a year ago. Terrence Moss Jr. turned pro along with Jamar Chase, who opted out of the entire 2020 season. Eric Gilbert's availability for next season is also uncertain. Brennan and Johnson each had their moments in the spring game. Brennan was 12 of 20 for 130 and a score, while Johnson went 11 of 17 for 180 and a pair of touchdowns. Johnson gave the edge, some gave Johnson the edge in the spring game. Others gave the nod to Brennan. I gave Johnson a slight edge, but it comes with an asterisk. Johnson was completely healthy, while Brennan is not yet 100% from a strength standpoint. He simply has not had the time needed to strengthen his core to the point he needs it. And listen, my thing is, if you look at the eye test, you got to look at it. It's most certainly going to be, in my opinion, Max Johnson. I mean, Brennan is, he's milquetoast at best. Leading receivers, Keyshawn Butte, who racked up 735 yards and 5 touchdowns on 45 receptions, is back as 5 other receivers who caught double-digit balls. Plus, the Tigers signed 5 wide receivers in the 2021 class. Low roster numbers plagued the team last year, but several seniors returned for an extra year since the 2020 season. Did not count towards a player's eligibility due to the C-19 situation. Now, the group includes starting defensive linemen Andre Anthony, Neil Farrell, Glenn Logan, wide receivers John Trey Kirkland, offensive tackle Austin Deculus, and center Liam Shanahan, a pair of underclassmen starters pondering entering their names to the draft. Offensive guard Ed Ingram, defensive end Ali Gay, and offensive tackle Dare Rosenthal, but all elected to return. That was an issue last season, but barring a barrage of unexpected transfers, should not be a problem in 2020. A lot of stability on the offensive line, always a positive thing when you talk about offense and protecting the quarterback. That's a plus. Max Johnson there. I think we do a lot better than we did this past season. Perhaps LSU needs to lean more on the running attack. We have some fantastic wide receivers that have showed themselves. John Trey is a really interesting option. Keyshawn's another one. Kevin, do you agree with ESPN's assumption of putting LSU at 20 with the talent we have?
Well, I'm thankful for ESPN for giving us 20. I think it's very favorable. But we got a big recruiting class that they're depending on that's getting a lot of attention, especially from the defensive side of the ball. You know, you hear Coach O saying, I think this is the best defensive line I've ever seen or coached, and he's coached a lot of good ones in his career. So for him to say that, I mean, either he's blowing smoke or he's telling the truth. Mason Smith, I think we all knew he was going to be an animal, man. So I'm not surprised at all that we're seeing those reports. And I think the secondary is in good shape. I don't see why we would not win 10 games this year, Q, at least. I'm hoping for more, but I think 10 is a good number, 10 to 11.
Yeah, we're going up against some heavy-handed competition, and yeah, we had a pretty solid class. Last year's class was pretty solid. This year's class, added to that class, should put us up somewhere better than what the hell we were last year, which was a 500 ball club. I thought we were a lot better than that. We underwhelmed, fell through the floor, and then people started hitting us with the talk about, there was just an aberration. LSU's really not as good as they say they are. They just got lucky one year and all this kind of stuff. No, we have to be perennial challengers of the throne every damn year.
Every year,
in my opinion.
Well, let me ask you this
Go ahead,
before you go on. What's going on with Eric Gilbert? Is he in or is he out? You know,
still uncertain on Eric Gilbert. You know, he went to Florida. He backed out of there. This dude is probably one of the most uncertain cats in the country. I can't get it. I was looking up Eric Gilbert a couple of weeks ago, trying to figure out what he's going to do. And, you know, there's no fresh information on there.
Some bad advice because, you know, NFL scouts look at that too. You know, dependability is just as important as availability. You know, can we depend on this guy? Is he in or he out? Sometimes if he's going to show up to the games and actually ball, or he's just going to show up and just not be here, but still on the field, just, you know, going through the motions. And it's kind of hard to go to war with a guy like that. You don't know where his mental state is, you know. I don't know what's really going on with all that, but he should have decided by now and been at somebody's camp. And you know, Coach Overhef left the door open saying, hey, you know, the door is open, but that time is running thin. I think he's being very gracious and very patient with this guy, you know?
Yeah, he is. And to be honest with you, we had they had a writer that covered this maybe a couple of weeks ago from Death Valley Voice. And he was saying that he felt like Gilbert's return to the Tigers was inevitable after backing out with Florida, and Coach O's been talking to him, and they're saying chances are he does come back to LSU, which would be a plus to get Eric Gilbert there along with what we're working with because of the offense. I mean, Max Johnson would definitely find a target like him, and he would be a much needed weapon for this LSU, especially with Pete's there operating the offense. And remember, that's the big sticking point to sell a guy like Eric Gilbert is, hey, you remember the offense that Joey B had, wide open, everybody catching passes, everybody catching touchdowns. We can have that again. I'm an understudy of Joe Brady. You know, I got his system. We have his system here. We can mimic that. We can recreate that and bring it to this version of LSU. So, I mean, a lot of writers are saying that they think that Gilbert comes back. But boy, what a hell of a trip that was when he went, man. He went all over the place. He wanted to go back to Florida. We heard he was trying to get back to Georgia. Now ultimately comes back to LSU. So yeah, it's been a kind of a traveling time for Eric Gilbert.
No. Yeah, man. We'll see. But like you said, I think that will help a young quarterback like Max. And it's going to be interesting. Like you talked about the offense, you're going to have to convert that over to a left-handed quarterback. So that might really throw a lot of teams off balance. You know, I would like to see that. I like to see Emory catching more passes off the backfield too. So I think he does have that, you know, that ability to do that. You know, get him moving and do some different things in his offense too. He's got the talent. So let's see what he has, you know, in other spaces of the offense. Just lining them up in one space, I think you're doing him a disservice. He can do more.
Yeah, and that's the issue. I think with the entire offensive line coming back from LSU, that gives it stability, these guys working together, and that'll continue to help with the running game. I think whether it's where Emory is there or whether it's, you know, TD Price, either one of them guys will be in. I mean, Williams, Bradford, they'll get opportunities to play. But the running game should be a major focus for this LSU offense. And we know Jake Peets is a guy that likes to his philosophy is to kind of keep a wide open type of vertical offense and, you know, play, you know, using the athletes around, running the ball, being more of a pass friendly style offense. As before, you had a guy like Brennan who can throw the ball around, has a gun for an arm, but, you know, it's just question marks to his when the game breaking down. Can he inspire players with confidence?
It means a lot.
And he fails at that. He doesn't have that. He's not a leader. He doesn't have that stage presence. And when the game's breaking down, he looks the same as if the game is not breaking down. So I mean, it's like you got to ratchet up. And he's just not that dude. And I've seen how Max responds, and they respond to him. He's alive. This other guy is half dead. But anyway, let's get right. And that's a big part of it. Let's get into this one here with Landon Jackson, the new pass rusher, 6'6" QB Punisher, as it's called. This article is coming from FanBuzz. And they're giving big shots out to Mr. Landon Jackson. And they're saying the best college football programs are able to recruit the 5-star athletes. No one knows this better than Nick Saban, who constantly reel in top recruits from some of the best high school programs in the country. But Orgeron is slowly but surely taking over. One premium position every SEC team vies for each recruiting class is defensive end. Without a pass rusher like former Texas A&M Aggies Myles Garrett, who was an absolute freak in high school, defensive struggle to disrupt quarterbacks in the league that's grooming great ones all the time. The class of 21 featured a 6'6" prize pass rusher named Landon Jackson. As a 4-star defensive end out of Pleasant Grove High School, that's Texarkana, Jackson was ranked number 8 weak side defensive end and 18th overall prospect in Texas, according to 24/7 Sports Composite. He chose the Tigers despite his dad ties to Texas A&M. So hold that Tiger. Landon Jackson from Texarkana joins the defensive line. And, of course, you heard what Coach O said, which you just mimicked what he was saying about that defensive line. And Coach O is over the top of that. And he's talking about it's going to be something to behold. Let's talk about that defensive line along with Landon Jackson connected to it, Kev.
Absolutely. And look, I don't think Coach O blowing smoke, man. He don't come across the dude that, just say stuff to say stuff, bro. He been around a long time. And if he said this is one of the best, I got to believe him, bro, because I see like a lot of potential, a lot of size, a lot of speed, a lot of quickness, a lot of just toughness. That's going to be the strength of this whole team, that defensive line. It's going to keep us in a lot of games. When they get chippy down the line, you're getting physical. That's a good trait to have. So I'm definitely on board with this defensive line being as stout as it is. The secondary is, I think the 2 outside corners are going to be great. Dwight McLaughlin, who they raving about, went to Deion Sanders camp. He's looking really good out there. And this other guy, this is what's crazy, right? This guy, I don't know what happened with Tennessee. They had this Demarius McGee. He's like he's rated in the top 13 of cornerbacks out the top 100. He's 13 out of 100, one of the 13 best cornerbacks, which is really good. Mm-hmm. 6'1", got good size he's 160. He could get a little heavier, but I think he's still at a good size. So he's a 4-star commit that Tennessee had. It was over. And all of a sudden, Corey Raymond out of nowhere snatched this guy. Tennessee like, hey, man, what happened? So this could be another guy, Demarius McGee, keep your eyes on during the season that can come out of nowhere. And people like, well, who is that guy? And he's one of the guys that Tennessee was going to have. So and he's looking good in camp too. So, yeah, man, I think the Tigers should win at least 10 games, Q. I think the defense is going to be good enough to keep them at least in 10 games.
Young defense, certain components of it. You did a lot of really talented players back. Neil Farrell Jr., Glenn Logan, Andre Anthony is there. He's a big part of what's going on as well. And there's several other really talented prospects that's going to be on that defense. Linemen like a Damone Clark, or whether it's Mika Bakersfield. I mean, we got some talent there. And you mentioned the secondary, Derek Stingley. Ultimately, you got Elias Ricks is there, Cordell Flott. You mentioned Dwight McLaughlin. Jay Ward and the rest of these guys. It's interesting, man, to see how it's all going to shake. A lot of talent there as well. Todd Harris Jr. is somebody I'm going to be looking out for. Cameron Lewis as well. I mean, you got a lot of talent there.
It's a lot of depth. A lot of depth at cornerback. And, this is what's so, I think, exciting about LSU football this year from the defensive side. Coach O, came in the room. It's like, hey, would you guys be okay? Or I'm gonna tell you that I'm gonna be taking over some of the defensive line duties. They're like, oh, that's great. We love to have you in the room. So Coach O wants to be more involved in the defensive room this year because that's his bread and butter. Q. We knew he coached defense for a long time in the league. And I'm glad to see him more in that room with these young guys that help groom them any way they can. Any other information you can get, take it and run with it. So that's good to see that everybody's on board with letting Coach O have more responsibilities with the D line.
Absolutely, and that's a major plus. You know, Coach O is real hands-on when it comes down to the defensive line, and it's probably one of the most talented units on his football team. So, I mean, he's recruited hard and built a very powerful young defensive line, and we're going to see how they react. Now, let's get into this article right here, which we talked about the spring camp with guys like McLaughlin and with, taking advantage with Eli Ricks being out. And of course, we talk about Derek Stingley and Eli Ricks proved that they could be an elite cornerback duo. Two All-Americans figure out how to play significant roles in 2021, which I believe they will. But Ricks limited most of the camp due to an injury and opened the window for Dwight McLaughlin. The rising sophomore grew as the freshman season went along, with Stingley missed the final few games with a minor injury. That confidence in McLaughlin only grew even more so. He says I'm proud of Dwight. He grew up every day. Like I said, he's going against Keyshawn, Jare, Coy. He's going against those guys, and that's pretty good. Those guys are going to get him ready. That's what Damone Clark say every day. Right. We watch the one-on-ones that they have with each other, and they're battling with each other. Offense up one-on-one one day, defense good. One-on-one days, just like today, he put it all together. He has so many pass deflections, I don't even know how many he had. Mm-hmm. And of course, he's talking about this time during. Now he's 6'2". He's got height and size. Impact players need to have it throughout his spring game. He was not only keeping up with the receivers, but he was excelling in coverage against some of LSU's top offensive weapons. Would be a bit of surprise to see him earn reps in a 9-conference slate of the schedule. Defensive coordinator Durante Jones has no preconceived notions about what secondary rotation should look like, something that bodes well for a player like McLaughlin if he continues to impress. And they said he came down, and when he came down and hit, he was doing that, breaking up passes. Just seeing him from the growth he had from last year, I'm proud of him, because around this time last year he was coming in, Clark said, the Dwight we see now is the Dwight that we know. He can ball because he just continued to keep working. So, I mean, you mentioned his abilities in the camp with Deion Sanders. I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak on McLaughlin. I know you was big on him. You was talking to me before we started the broadcast about how good is McLaughlin in terms of the overall skill level of the defensive backs that we have on the team, because there's quite a few of them. I mean, where is he at? Is he better than Cordell Flott in your appearance? Is he better than Jay Ward, Rendarius Jones?
Yeah.
So you consider him the third best of all of them behind Stingley and Eli Ricks?
I do, but I mean, it's a battle right now, and that's the good thing. I think, when you competing like that, bro, it's going to bring out the best, and that's what we want on the field. But, he was standing out to me in spring practice. I was watching his back pedals, the way he turned his hip, the way he looks for the ball, the way he's using his hand to bat the ball down, but also keeping his other off arm away from grabbing the receiver, just little stuff like that. I'm like, man, this guy got the skills. And so Deion wasn't lying when he said, yo, man, he got some dog in him. I like him. And if Deion like you, he sees something. And I see the same thing when I watch him on tape. So I would not be surprised to see him at a nickel. He's 6'2", good size. Let these guys battle, Q. Let's see, who comes out winning.
Yeah, we're gonna see. It's gonna be interesting to watch. The camp goes on and see how this all plays out, because I'm very intrigued by the secondary of LSU. I want to see what happens with the defensive line. Defense is where my mindset is at, and of course, on offense, I'm looking at the quarterback position, how Max responds with all that talent. You have the stability of the line that's coming back together. Boutte will be there, Coy Moore, Trey Palmer, those John Trey Kirkland, those guys that have opportunity to step up and ball as we keep that wide receiver talent going as well. And of course, TD Price, Emery, if John Emery finally get an opportunity to be the man that a lot of people seen him was, he should be the guy moving forward, because he can do a little bit of everything. He's probably, in my opinion, the most talented of the backs they have, and we have some pretty good ones. I also like Trey Bradford's scat back ability. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, this is going to be a lot of questions being asked about, just who is the Tigers and can they compete against some of the nation's best programs. We'll see coming up real soon. But anyway, let's move into the next area of the show. Kev, we're about to play an interview here by Coach O as he speaks upon some of the players that eventually moved on to the NFL that were drafted. You know who those guys are, the Chases of the world, the Terrace Marshall Jr. Here's Coach O talking about his reaction to some of those guys leaving.
No question. We use it for recruiting, and that's what we went into the homes and told everybody. Jamal, his family was so appreciative at the draft. Say, Coach, everything you told us in recruiting happened, and it's like that with most of our recruits now. Some of them went lower than expected, but you know what? The big thing is just get there. Once you get there, make the team and have a great career. Jake, you know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you get there, kind of the draft grade and the draft round for the most part, coaches, coaching in the NFL, that kind of goes to the side. It's what can you do? You can be a 6th-round pick, coach. If you make those 2-3 plays in training camp, they don't really care where you're selected.
Exactly right. So everybody has an opportunity. I'm glad all the guys, they're great young men, great families. I know they're excited. I talked to most of them. They can't wait to get to work.
All right, Coach. So with that being said, 21 guys, obviously 14 from a year ago, 7 from this draft. But what's crazy is when you peel back the layers, yes, 7 guys drafted that won't be on the team this year, but you only have 33 games played from those 7 players. You got 10 from Jacoby. You got 10 from Jabril Cox. You've got 7 from Terrace Marshall and 6 from Racy McMath. So losing 7 guys, but only losing 33 games of productivity on the field, that's kind of hard to do. So that's a good sign for this team moving forward.
Yes, it is. Although those guys were very good players, did a lot for LSU. It's not like the year before where we lost all those guys that went to the NFL. And the COVID rule really helped us getting our offensive line and defensive line back. I think that was a big plus for us.
Hey, Coach, this is Matt Musso. I wanted to ask you about an individual guy in Tyler Shelvin going to the Bengals, of course, reuniting with some former 2019 teammates there. But Shelvin's a guy whose career at LSU has been well chronicled. He just improved tremendously each year, really hit his peak there in 2019 before opting out due to the pandemic. What do you think it just says for a guy like Tyler Shelvin who has never quit fighting and has now found his way to the NFL?
I'm so proud of Big T. The one thing I asked him when he told me he was opting out, I said, okay, I'm going to support you. That's your system. I want you to lose weight. I don't know how big he was, but he was over 380 for sure. And when he came to his pro days, I think he was right at 350. So I know he was working out. He looks good. I think Cincinnati's a great spot for him with Jamar and Joe there. They got a great program there. If they wanted him, he's excited. He's hungry. I think he took it very well.
Yeah, and Coach, you just –
That's coming from the Off the Bench show. Coach O made an appearance right there. And he covered some interesting topics. Kev, you heard what Coach O was basically saying about some of the LSU Tigers and the fact that a lot of Tigers made it into the NFL. That's always a good bet. We raised some supreme talent here. Hope the Saints would actually grow some eyes and start looking over here and start picking some of these goddamn players and stop letting Atlanta, Carolina, and all these other people get these guys and they come back here and make plays against us. But Tyler Shelvin was an interesting one. I was mocking Tyler Shelvin to the Saints. Of course, that didn't happen. He joined Jamar Chase and Joey Burrow in Cincinnati, which Cincinnati had a pretty decent draft as well. Which one of the LSU players well, give me 2 of them. Which 2 LSU players that you've seen that were drafted you liked where they went?
Let's see. I don't really like where they went because I thought we should have had a few of them, bro. I'm just disappointed. But I see what Cincinnati is building over there. And also they signed Thaddeus Moss. So I'm like, oh, we could see what they're doing over there. I don't know why the Saints, going so far away. It's got to be something else going on behind the scenes that's looming because now I'm convinced it's got to be some bad blood somewhere because there was no way you should have let Terrace Marshall walk off the board, and there was no way you should have let Jabril Cox. You could have also snatched Kerry Benson in the later round as well. So there is no excuse, man. I don't care what Mickey Loomis says. That guy is not better than Jabril Cox, man. Pete Warner. I don't care what they say. He's not. But, we got to live with the results, man, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's a part of it. That's what I was so livid about the whole situation when it happened. And I was looking at it. There was nothing really about Jabril Cox that I was reading or researching. They said he had some hamstring issue. And, I'm like, man, please, man. I mean, Jabril Cox, that's not enough for him to drop all the way to the 4th round. Right, that's still a steal. Remember what happened with what was his name? Jalen Smith, the
Mhm.
linebacker
Same
from the Cowboys. Remember, he had
Yep.
microfracture surgery on his knee. They didn't
Mhm.
think he would be able to even walk straight or walk right. It would be years before he was able to play again. The
Overcame it.
Cowboys took him where? Didn't they take him in the second round?
Yeah, he's still he was an upper pick. He didn't go to the 4th round. That's what I'm saying.
That don't make any sense.
Yeah, Jabril dropped further, and he was more healthier at the time than that guy was. So there was no excuse. I don't understand the Saints on that one. I don't agree with the pick, but I think the guy is solid. I think he's a Mike linebacker. But now Jabril Cox is a playmaker. That's the whole difference between, I think, getting back to the Super Bowl, Q, and I won't turn into a Saints show, but being mediocre, because you need playmakers. Warner is solid. He's not a playmaker. Jabril is solid, and he's a playmaker, and that's what you might miss, man. So hopefully Quan Alexander come back, another LSU guy.
Yeah, as many LSU guys who can get on the Saints staff would be a positive for me, man, because at least you got some players there that can help you win some things. But that'll do it for the show tonight, fam. I'd like to thank y'all for chiming in on this episode of Tuff Tiger Talk. And this one was called TJ Finley enters the NCAA transfer portal and more Tiger topics. And also Brennan is a guy that they speculate could also end up doing the same damn thing. Which, listen, I'll tell you what, I'm not the least bit upset if he does. He can get there a lot faster than what I can. Maybe I can put him in the cannon and shoot his ass through the NCAA transfer portal. I will help him.
Where you going, Juco?
Right. I mean, wherever he can go. If he won't go play football in the Arctic, let me find you a cannon, the biggest one in the world, and shoot your ass over there as soon as possible. So, I mean, you know how that go, Kev. But last thoughts, Kev, final thoughts on Tuff Tiger Talk before we end the show, boy.
Man, I am very excited about this season, Q. It's a lot of good young talent right there. They competing, and we're going to get, hopefully, the best players to be on the team. The talent is there. New coaches are there. A different vibe and spirit is there. So I'm expecting some big things from the Tigers this year to be right up there at that championship level. And we got to take it to Bama and show our respect. We need our respect back, Q. They beat us 55-17, bro. We can't let that slide,
Yeah, that's something we got to take care of business against teams like Alabama and Florida and guys like that. We can't go into next season having slip ups against these guys. And like we said, the offensive line is together. That means the camaraderie is there. The harmony is there with the offensive line to protect Max Johnson, who I believe will be the starter there. We have the running game there to produce. We have a young and upstanding core people, wide receivers wise, that we need to look out. Look out for Eric Gilbert possibly coming back with this offensive tech and a defense, man. I got big aspirations to watch the defense tear the SEC up. So with that being said, that'll be it in the show. I thank y'all for joining us for this episode of Tuff Tiger Talk. We'll be back next week with more Tuff Tiger Talk topics. Hit the subscribe button and join the realest show talking about your LSU Tigers. From me and my dog, GM Kev. Appreciate y'all joining us. Peace.
Hey.
You're now listening to Tuff Tiger Talk with Big Q and the guys on the Pro Media Network.
Homebistro.com. Freshly prepared, home delivered, restaurant quality gourmet meals delivered straight to your